Hey portable gamers, we've got a roundup of the state of handhelds coming up for you. Now I'm going to take a look at 6 of the top handheld devices in the market today or coming extremely soon. So let's kick things off with the Nintendo Switch OLED model, which is the top version that we have available right now. And we're going to try and keep the stats consistent across the board here. There's no other variants of the OLED Switch that we know of at the moment, and it was originally launched in October 2021. It runs a proprietary operating system. Standard resolution is 720p and it does support docking. Native screen is 7 inches and it has a battery capacity of 16 watt hours, with typical Switch usage of going to get around 4 to 9 hours on this. It has its own NVIDIA custom Tegra processor and can max out at 60 frames per second. There's 4 gigs of RAM in the OLED Switch and it comes with 64 gig of storage inbuilt. Size wise, it's 241.3 millimeters wide, 101.6 millimeters tall, and 13.97 millimeters deep. Very lightweight, it's only 421 grams. And does have an accelerator and detachable controllers. Price on this one is around $350 or $310 in the UK or $350 in Europe. Next up, we have the Ayaneo 2. The 32 gig variant also has 3 other variants due to the storage options. Originally launched in December 2022, this runs a combination of Windows 11 and the Ayaneo OS, has a screen resolution of 1200p, and does support dock mode. 7-inch IPS screen on this one with an AMD 6800U processor, maxing out at 60 frames per second. 32 gigs of RAM in this one, and the storage, it depends on the variant, between 512 gig and 2 terabytes. Slightly bigger than the Switch at 264.5 millimeters wide, 105.5 millimeters high, and much thicker at 36.1 millimeters. Also quite a lot heavier, but not the heaviest of our bunch here at 680 grams. Also supports gyroscope, and depending on the variant is between $1,099 and $1,499 US dollars, $1,070 to £1,250, or $1,150 to €1,644. Next up, we have the Steam Deck. Only going to look at the 512 model here as the top variant. Been available since February 2022 and runs its own Steam OS. However, you can install Windows if you want to, and even dual boot it if you follow some guides. 800p screen resolution on this one and does support docks. 7-inch IPS screen and a 40 watt hour battery, which will get you anywhere between 2 and 6 hours of gaming. Although it's quoted up to 8 hours, we just don't believe that. AMD APU on this one and 60 frames per second max, 16 gig of RAM, and the 512 gig of storage space. Slightly larger than the Ayaneo 2 at 298 millimeters wide, 117 millimeters tall, and 49 millimeters deep at its thickest point, weighing around 669 grams. Gyroscope is supported and will cost you $650 US dollars, 570 UK pounds, or 680 euros. Onto the much anticipated ROG Ally, coming in June 2023. This is the Z1 Extreme version that we're going to be looking at, which is the top model, and it does have 2 storage variants, running Windows 11, 1080p 7-inch IPS level screen. Now note it says IPS level on this one, not actual IPS, so it will be interesting to see what that actually means. Battery life of 40 watt hours, giving you between 1 and 6 hours depending on the mode that you're running. AMD 6800U processor on this one and Radeon RDNA 3 graphics card. Boasting 120 max FPS, which is the highest of all of the devices that we're featuring today, and only 16 gig of RAM, surprisingly. 512 gig on the storage option, and slightly smaller than the Steam Deck at 200 millimeters wide, 111 millimeters tall, and 21.2 millimeters thick at its thinnest point, although it's only slightly thicker on the edges. A bit lighter as well at 608 grams. This is pegged to have a gyroscope, but the software is not enabled at the moment. We're still waiting to find out if that's going to be available at launch. However, it does have another trick up its sleeve where you can have an external graphics card in a dock, so you can give this the power of up to a 4090, but for an extra $2,000. The standard version of the Z1 Extreme though, without an external GPU, is $700 £700 or €800. Next up is the most expensive of our bunch. It's the OneXPlayer 2. 32 gig model we're going to be looking at. There are 4 variants in total with the storage and RAM options. Released in February 2023, running Windows 11. 1600p screen on this one, with also the largest screen of all of our devices at 8.4 inches and a 65.5 watt hour battery boasting 2 to 9 hours on the IPS display, still maxing out at 60 frames per second with an AMD 6800U processor and a Radeon 680M graphics processor. 32 gigabytes of RAM in this one, and the storage between 1 and 2 terabytes. Largest of all of our devices by a fair amount at 310mm wide, 127mm tall and 23mm thick. Also the heaviest at 848 grams, and also the only other device to boast detachable controllers. Most expensive of all of our devices as well, between $1,300 and $1,400, between $1,071 and £1,649, and $1,599 and €1,889. Very, very expensive device. Last up, we have the Aokzoe A1. 32 gig model that we're looking at here with 2 storage variants, originally released in July 2022, running Windows 11, 1200p 8-inch IPS screen on this one, and a battery of 65 watt hours giving 2 to 8 hours gameplay, also capped at 60 frames per second, 32 gigabytes of RAM and the 1 to 2 terabytes of storage option between the ROG Ally and OneXPlayer on the size on this one at 285mm wide, 125mm tall and 21mm thick. Also in between on the weight at 729 grams, making it the second heaviest, and also with gyroscope. Now I can only find US pricing on this one. I can't find any shipping either outside of the US, so let me know if you're outside of the US and managed to get hold of one of these. So these are straight conversions after the US pricing, but the US pricing depending on storage option is $1,160 to $1,260, roughly converts to $930 to £1,010 and $1,070 to €1,160. So there we have it. They are the top handhelds for local gaming right now. Let us know in the comments below if you're going to be picking one of these up or whether you're going to be holding off to see what comes next, like the very interesting looking Aokzoe A1 Pro, or are you going to wait for a new Switch or potentially the new Steam Deck? Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.